Hey there, Jim Johnson for Accent Help. I had an inquiry from someone on YouTube who had seen some of the videos and was wondering about something specific for him. And so in watching just a couple of his videos, what I sort of picked up on was that his throat was very closed and his placement was kind of back in his throat. It was actually a Brit speaker as well. And there was some elements that would drop much more back here, which is actually a really common placement for people. It's huge in the States. I grew up in Iowa, and in general, when I talk with my family, oftentimes our placement drops back into the throat. Now, that said, placement is a little bit of a BS sort of thing. Placement is a sense of where sound lives in your mouth, and it's not necessarily a scientific truth that this is what placement is, but it's a sensation that tends to make sense to people, so I will use that term. So when the placement is that far back, and when I hear someone's throat closing, there are a number of things that we can do. One of the ones that I tend to find helps the most, but it really will take some focus, is a tongue stretch. So I want to demonstrate this tongue stretch, and this is one of those bizarro things, but you got to get over it. But you probably want to do this alone rather than when a cop is in the car next to you or something. So hopefully not in the very same car, but in one over. So what you do is you actually take your tongue and stick it as far out of your mouth as you can. Huge tongue stretch out of your mouth. And with your tongue out of your mouth, you try to articulate, you try to speak. So I'm going to take a sonnet by Shakespeare. When in disgrace the fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. Now what I'm trying to do is trying to get my throat used to being open. And one of the big things that closes up the throat is the tongue. There are lots of things that get in the way of closing up that throat space. The tongue, the throat itself, the pharynx, the soft palate or the velum, those things all need to move out of the way. The jaw as well opening up tends to have an effect on that. So opening of the throat and getting the sensation forward will probably be the thing that will help. And that tongue stretch can be huge with it. You've got to get used to speaking with it. And then what you do is you begin to bring your tongue back in the midst of a line. So if you're doing a prepared piece of text, that in the midst of that line you bring your tongue back in so that it's not connected to sort of taking a new breath and closing up your throat again, like, then in disgrace the fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. If you do it on the breath, you'll be more likely to close up your throat. But if you do it in the midst of a breath, in the midst of an expression, you'll be more likely to keep your throat open. When in disgrace of fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries. And by going back and forth like that, you'll begin to train your throat to stay more open. A sonnet's not a bad idea for working on this, because sonnets take about a minute. And doing about a minute of it, you may notice a difference in your throat. That doesn't mean in 1 minute you're going to have this solved. You've got to work on this over time, but you may, by the end of that minute, actually notice a difference, even if this is a huge issue for you. So the tongue stretch is a great way to open up your throat. One of the best ways to work a muscle, actually 2 great ways to work a muscle, are to stretch it and to work it really hard. And by stretching, by moving your tongue out of your mouth, you're stretching it and working it really hard, which will tend to help that group of muscles to relax. And that'll make them more likely to get out of the way and not be quite stuck back in the throat to the degree that they have been. Hope that helps.